What's the story, everyone? Welcome back to GAA Fan TV. I hope you're all keeping wonderfully well. My name is Aaron. So obviously over the past couple of weeks we've been doing a number of previews on the channel, obviously ahead of the upcoming 2021 National League, and obviously we've been discussing the likes of Donegal and Cork, Galway, etc. A number of different counties, and today I've got the RF Come On podcast here with me to discuss Mayo, of course. Obviously Mayo last year got to another All-Ireland final, certainly had a successful year in many ways, obviously winning the Connacht Championship as well. I suppose first of all, great to have you on. Any crack with yourself?
No, not much, Aaron. Thanks very much for the invite to talk about my beloved Mayo. And you mentioned there we had a good year last year, but another All-Ireland final defeat and more misery to pile on that was already there. But look, we're alive, we're well, we're looking forward for another year. The evenings are getting brighter. People are slowly but surely coming back to the real world. So, yeah, look, things are all right. But how about yourself?
Yeah, things are going good now, thankfully. Yeah, I suppose we're only, hopefully anyway, I know with the government announcement there a couple of days ago, we're getting closer anyway towards the end of the lockdown. I feel like maybe now we're kind of finally coming to the end of it. I don't know what you think yourself, but I feel like hopefully now anyway we're slowly coming towards the end of it now. I'm not going to get my hopes up, but that's what it feels like.
That's exactly what I was just going to say. So I wouldn't bank on everything. The way things were going, we thought we were over the worst of it before Christmas, and bang, we went back into worse stages again. But look, at the kids are out playing football now. I think adult training begins on the 10th of May, 10th or the 11th, I think. So things are looking up, and teams are getting back out in the pitch, and of course the inter-county teams have been training away now for the last week or so, 10 days. So it's brilliant. Look at it's all go now. Fixtures are out for the league. The draws have been done for the provincial championships. We have a clear calendar. We know when the inter-county games start. We know when the final is probably going to be, where the club season starts. So yeah, it's all go now for people like yourself covering the GAA, and hopefully all going well. We might even get to see an odd game or two, and not just have to look over a wall like we were for some stages of games last year.
Yeah, I suppose that's it. I know, there was people, I suppose, on top of poles and hanging out at trees and everything, just to watch the games. You were one of them, were you?
Harrow was, yeah. It was a couple of times now I had to be a bit creative with getting into games and stuff. But yeah, look, that's all part of the crack too. If you can't get in, you give it a go. But within reason, I wasn't traveling across the country or anything too. But if there was a game nearby and I didn't have a ticket, I'd still try and get me beak over the fence for a quick look.
Yeah, sure, that's it. I suppose you have to make the most of it in the best way you can, I suppose, and it's definitely been tough for a lot of fans, obviously not seeing the games, and hopefully, anyways, we can kind of, I don't know, hopefully get fans back by, maybe at some stage. I think they were saying maybe in July they might be able to have fans back. Hopefully, maybe in a limited capacity. Obviously we're seeing over in England now they're talking about getting fans back, in America. The UFC, they had a fully staged arena over in Florida. So look, listen, hopefully anyway we're not too far away anyways.
Yeah, you see it close to home, even in England with the Man City in the League Cup final, and there was even, I think it was in the Gibraltar, was it, the boxing that they had limited capacity with Eddie Hearn's fights as well. So it's great to see a bit of live sport back coming around now, and yeah, it's going to come thick and fast if you were to believe what you read in the news about vaccinations and everything else. So yeah, look, we're in a good place now, and hopefully we can put the foot down and get back to life.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I suppose we'll look back at Mayo's championship season and league season, obviously last year. I suppose ultimately, how would you reflect on last year's league and championship season for Mayo?
I'd reflect, even though I suppose it's a positive thing when it reflecting. I think it was a good year for Mayo. You look at, we did get relegated from Division One. It was a broken up Division One due to the COVID and the breakup in season. Probably wouldn't have made much of a difference. We just had a poor couple of results on the road and at home against Tyrone. We needed to win. Normally, there'd be a big crowd at those last round games in McHale Park, and we somehow always seem to stay up, but not this time. Look, We're in Division 2 this year, which is look, it's not the end of the world. I've said that a couple of times in my own pod. It's not a big deal, and especially if we don't have crowds there, gate receipts and so on. From financial side of things, this isn't going to be a big problem for Mayo, because we're not going to get anyone inside. It was a bonus. We bled a lot of new young players. I think we'd 8 in total new players into the squad. We'd 4 or 5 retirements at the end of the season, lads that had served Mayo brilliantly down through the years, and that the last decade were absolute stalwarts for us. So we've managed to infuse a lot of good young players into the squad, and to leave out the older lads, get to an All-Ireland final. Now, we did have a handy enough run at it. I mean, we had Leitrim in the first round of the Connacht Championship, and they did put it up to us, and they did perform admirably, in fairness to Leitrim. We moved on. Then we had a game against Roscommon. I think it was a Connacht semi-final, and we bet them convincingly, which is a great thing to always hammer the Rossies. You cannot beat them enough. And then we moved on into Galway. The Connacht final was tetchy. I didn't think Galway performed at all. And then ultimately with the COVID and everything else, we had the semi-final with Tipperary. We've no quarter-final or Super 8 this year. Very, very lucky to get Tipperary. They deserve their Munster title, no doubt, but I just thought Mayo are a level or two ahead of Tip, and it showed. I mean, we ran away with that game, and then up to the Dubs. Yeah, they do what they do, and that's it. Yeah, they're just the best team in the competition, and it's simple as that. I wish I could come out and say something else, but it's not. There's no other talking about it. They're miles ahead of everyone else. Hopefully this year they'll come down a notch or two, and maybe Mayo will go up, Kerry will go up a gear. So hopefully, maybe Johnny Gall or Tyrone could go on a bit of runner. Because it's the shorter championship. You never know. It just takes one bad performance. I think if things were going to go the way they should, Mayo should be Connacht champions and play Leinster in the semi-final. Will be the Leinster winners in the semi-final. I believe it's this year's turn. Yeah.
Yeah, and I suppose we'd have to imagine that would be Dublin anyway, with all due respect, obviously, to the rest of the Leinster Championship. I mean, yeah, obviously for myself, as a Dublin fan myself, certainly, obviously, with Mayo last year, I think they definitely had a very good year, like obviously getting to that final, and I actually really felt that last year that Dublin were there for the taking. I said this on numerous podcasts before, with all the retirements, with a new manager coming in, the COVID situation, no fans in Croke Park. And I think, had it have been a Donegal or a Kerry, who knows, they might have beaten Dublin. But, we even seen in that final, I thought Mayo gave Dublin quite a good run for their money. Like, it was level going into the final 15 minutes, and I think Dublin just pulled away with their bench. Did it even surprise you a bit last year, kind of with the fact that you got to the final? Because even... I remember, I reflect back on the 2019 semi-final when Dublin obviously beat Mayo, and I was fully sure back then that was kind of going to be the end of Mayo for a few years. I thought we'd gotten rid of you, but you still managed to come back again to a final. So did it surprise you a bit getting back to the final?
Yeah. I wasn't expecting it last season. I thought if we were lucky, I think a Connacht title would have been sufficient, and a performance in the semi-final against Kerry was the thought process. But once that late goal went in against Cork, the whole county's minds changed, and they started thinking, "Oh Jesus, maybe we might have a chance here. Hold on a second, you never know." And as any Mayo fan, I tell you, it comes up to a final, you could be playing anyone, and you'd be thinking, "Geez, we have a chance. And we were like that, like everyone else, thinking you never know, leading with our hearts and not our heads. But yeah, we were lucky. We're lucky that Cork caught Kerry on the hop. And now we haven't seen much of Kerry. They're the reigning Division 1 champions. Remember, now they're going to be coming in after a good blackening over the winter. They're going to be wanting to prove an awful lot of people wrong, and they're going to. I think they've goal in the first game of this Division 1. I think so. It's going to be a massive season for Kerry, and a massive season for the Kerry management. More importantly, because they have a lot of people to prove, and going from reports that he was under pressure down there, the Kerry manager. So. Look, it's going to be good. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it now, and I did. Yeah, I was happy that we got to a final. it was unusual as well, I suppose, that everyone was sitting at home. Like in the last decade, we've been spoiled absolutely rotten. I'm in the early 30s now and had 10 years there from just coming out of college. The best years to be going to games, a few pound in your pocket, and the right age to hit up to Dublin on a weekend for an All-Ireland quarter-final, semi-final, final. We nearly had a routine there at one stage of what we were doing, which is unusual, but it was great times. And sitting at home watching an All-Ireland final was strange. It was strange to have the whole family around the one TV and watching the game and watching the one thing. Normally people would be spread out, but we're all glued in it and watching it. Well, it was good, yeah. Will we get there again? Oh, I don't know. God knows.
Yeah, I suppose it definitely was a strange one, alright, last year, alright, especially during the lockdown. Like, obviously, I suppose with myself being here in Dublin, obviously it wasn't, I suppose, too different. It was still, the town was still packed and everything
Arsenal, no one
would have been
cares up in
close to.
Dublin now at this stage.
Yeah, fed up
You
hearing
must,
about
you,
us at this
you
stage.
must be getting sick of it now at this stage. I know when we won 5 Connacht titles in a row, there was no one even talking about it. So what's it like winning 10 Leinsters?
Yeah, it's definitely like I will be honest. Like, I think it's definitely, obviously in sport and any sport, you want to see the competition element of it, and you want to see rivalries. You want to see, I always reflect back on the 2009 Leinster final between Dublin and Kildare. Some of the big meetings with Meath in the early 2000s when I was just, a teenager. I was going to those games with my dad, and there were great memories like going to those matches. You won't get them today now, unfortunately. Like,
No, like I used to love.
not.
I used to love watching in the noughties Dublin. I thought it was brilliant because they were never a threat to anyone, bar the few boys in Leinster, and it was a competition in itself. And you'd be watching at home on a Saturday evening there, and was it Mark Vaughan, the blonde lad, or Ginger, but Joy Blonde, watching him kicking big scores there and big games and winning a Leinster title and pitch invasions and and then you knew they were going up against Kerry or Tyrone and to get their arses handed to them. So you know what I mean? It was like another competition in another country almost, watching the Dubs and the Naughties. And then they copped on and got serious and seemed to pump a load of money and do the right things. And all of a sudden now it's unstoppable. But back then it was brilliant. I heard great memories of the Dubs and the Naughties.
Yeah, no, like I definitely didn't see it coming now, to be honest. I definitely didn't see the success that they've had over the past like 5-10 years, like winning 6 in a row. And like I was only 16 when Dublin won their first All-Ireland 2011, like their first All-Ireland in 16 years, and I was 16, so like I hadn't seen Dublin win an All-Ireland before then. So it's definitely been a mad time period, alright.
Yeah, like you don't really realize, I don't think yourself, what misery feels like until you've lost a couple of All-Irelands, especially against the same team, and it's piss and rain and you're 3 hours from home and you're probably starting to sober up a bit from the few points you had before the big three, and you're realising you have to get home to Mayo. See, it's a completely different experience for a Dublin fan, I think, compared to any other county when you get to play all your games in the city. And you don't have to worry about traveling and everything else, and you're not losing a day's work the next day and so on. So I just in the friendliest way possible, I hope that you start to feel a bit of a disappointment sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I suppose we'll have to see what happens. I mean, look, listen, it's definitely not going to go on forever, anyways. And I know Kieran Whelan was speaking out recently on the JMac podcast recently, kind of talking about he feels they'll get beaten this year, but have to see how that goes. Obviously, James Horan, who's come back into the Mayo senior management team, obviously for the past couple of years. I wanted to get your opinion, obviously, on him since he's come back into the management fold, because I mean I think he's done a great job, like winning the league. I know he's got relegated last year, but I think obviously with a lot of different changes and everything else, I think you were a little bit unlucky to go down, and you won a Connacht. So how would you rate James Horan since he's come back into the management fold?
Oh, he's completely reinvigorated the team and added young blood, and is continuing to do so. I mean, there's more players came in since the retirements. I know there's a lot of talk about two very exciting young players in Mayo, Enda Hessian and Jack Carney. So keep an eye out for them if they're in the squads at all this year, if they can make an impact. they're going to be up there with the likes of Oisin Mullen and Noel McLaughlin's and Tommy Conroy's. But going back to James Horan, yeah, I mean, there's no better fella to reinvigorate a team and get them up to a very, very high standard in terms of strength and conditioning and a game plan before the game. But I think Horan's massive downfall, and it has been since he began management, is in-game decisions and reading a match. I don't think he's improved any bit. I think he showed it again in last year's All-Ireland final with a couple of decisions where instead of, he went defensive when he should have went for it when they had the chance. Now, I'm not saying that they would have won the game or anything if they had went for a more positive mindset, but if the same thing keeps happening, you can't ignore it, excellent at, if there was such a thing as a director of football role within Mayo or with any county, to have someone to bring the standards up of every player, Horan is your man. But in game, no, I don't. I'm not a big fan now at this stage of the match of unless things change. He starts, maybe, I don't know, is he listening to people or not, but it's not working out for him.
Yeah, I suppose that's interesting. I suppose it was kind of the first, because I remember in the second half of the final last year, I think it was the first 10 minutes, I think Dublin were down to 14 men. There was definitely a chance all right there for Mayo to really kind of.
We should have freed up Oisin Mullen or bring on Keith Higgins and let him be the free man for the 10 minutes. I know, like, there's nothing wrong with Michael Plunkett's a great footballer, a great lad and everything. But he's not going to be the positive difference when you have a spare man. He's more of a defensively minded player, which he is because he's a centre half back. But you've someone like Keith Higgins on the bench or Oisin Mullen, who was already up the field a couple of times that game and got a great point early on the game. If we could have freed him up and went for it, we'd nothing to lose. Just go for it. It's because the jobs are going to be coming. Like you were going to know the last 15-20 minutes, the jobs are going to coming at you hard. They're going to be bringing on 3 or 4 fellas that are probably have all stars. Why not? If you have a chance with a beast like that and you have them on the ground, you got to stand on their neck. You have to. And unfortunately, we didn't. But I still don't think that we would have won it if we had done that. But we have to start thinking that way. That we need to be ruthless. If we do get a small chance, we have to take it. We've only got one chance.
Yeah, I suppose because we've seen that with Kerry, obviously, in 2019, like when Dublin went down to 14 men, like they definitely, obviously they didn't win the game, but they were as close as anyone came to beating Dublin over the past 6 years or so. Like, do you think even kind of, I suppose, obviously with the championship format the way it is, the way it's a straight knockout and there's no backdoor, do you think that suits Mayo as well? Because I know in previous years, I feel like Mayo have they've had their eye more in the All-Ireland and they've probably maybe taken their eye off the ball a bit in Connacht early on, but obviously this year there is no backdoor. So do you think that suits Mayo as well?
It has. I think they did when Rochford came in. He had a pre-made team there that was very close to winning All Ireland after the Holmes Kennelly debacle, and he was going for the All Ireland. He had a choice to make. I think Stephen Rochford. They were so close to winning All Ireland. Do you go with the same team again and squeeze the orange again and hoping to get another glass of juice? He was right. I think they were so close to go first, and he had another go then in 17. It didn't. He was very unlucky. He was very close, Stephen Rochford, very close to it. Didn't work out for him, and they went back then to Horan again and went to rebuild. They had their chances, but does the knockout? The question was, does the knockout suit Mayo? It does, of course, it does. Less games suits most teams. I mean, we've a competitive enough championship when you take Dublin out of it, but Mayo would fancy themselves against most teams. We got Sligo the first round, or we got Sligo in the first round, then we have Leitrim in the semi-final and probably Galway in the final. You're going, look at it, if Mayo were to be going well, they'd win the Connacht title, and we have a semi-final against a very cold Dublin outfit, which is there cracks beginning to appear in the Dublin team now, getting caught at the COVID training. Desi Farrell suspension, players leaving. You never know. A cold Dublin team that has no test. You'd be hoping that Mayo could maybe give them a rattle.
Yeah, I suppose they're gonna have to be beat at some point, and I suppose if Mayo are the team to do it, then look, listen, best of luck to them and fair play to them.
I'd love it. As Kevin Keegan going to say, I'd love it if we beat them. I'd love
it. Yeah.
It'd be great. It'd be great to be the ones to knock them off their perch. It would, yeah. Honestly, it'd be mighty. As long as we went on and won the damn thing, though, that's the main thing.
Yeah. Well, I suppose before, obviously, it would come to that, you have Division 2 North, I suppose, to get through. First, Westmeath, down, Meath in that group as well. How do you see that? How do you see that going?
I was just looking at the fixtures before I came on, just to freshen the mind up. We've down the first game, McHale Park. We played down 2 years ago, up in a qualifier. They put us under pressure, but we got through it. It was Horan's first year, I think it was. Yeah, we no Killing O'Connor, a few lads missing. It was a lovely evening above in Newry. We got through it though. They were coming at us midway through the second half. I think we got a goal. Maybe, maybe Connor Loftus or someone got the goal. I forget. So yeah, Down will give us a good game. They'll be well able, but we should be beating them. We should be beating a team like Down. We've no pre-season games. I'd say they'll have a challenge this weekend or next weekend, whenever the restrictions are eased for them. It won't be this weekend because they're a training camp this weekend. And second game then is Westmeath. I've seen Westmeath play Sligo last year or the year before above in Sligo in a league game. Look at Westmeath, yeah. Did they come up from Division 3 this year? They did, yeah.
No, I think they're still in Division 2. They avoided relegation.
Sorry, yeah. Sorry. They were in Division 3 and I was watching them play Sligo. That's what I meant to say. They should look at you'd be expecting to win. Mayo want to be getting out of Division 2 and getting promoted. They'll have to win these games. I know they're saying there'll be nothing soft or nothing easy. It is away from home. So if it'll be good experience for me, Westmeath, but Mayo should be getting out on top. And then it's the Meath game at home. That's the big one. Like we played Meath last year in the league. It was an awful day. It was up in Navan. It was a storm, orange one or red one on the way to it. Didn't get to drive through to get to it. I didn't bother going for it. I think I watched it on TG Carr online, and like they're well able to play it, but the weather was hard to. It's hard to read or judge a team when the weather conditions are like that. And sure, Meath won't fear Mayo either. Like that'll be a close game. But look, I think Mayo should do well in them 3 games. If form was to go the way it was expected, I would say that Mayo should win all 3 games. And that's not me being a cocky, arrogant answer from a Mayo fan or not. I just, if Mayo perform, they should be coming out there with the 3 wins. But look, there's been how many leagues and how many performances in the league that we've been very poor, but maybe our eyes are on the bigger prize. So I'm sure James Horan had them well reminded now over the next week or so about getting the 3 wins and getting a chance at promotion.
Yeah, I suppose like in the group you're in, I feel like definitely promotion is a very likely possibility. Like I think playing down on Westmeath in the first 2 games, I think is pretty handy as well, because obviously you had a fair few retirements. Obviously last year you'll probably have a new back line in there with some of the retirements.
Keith Higgins is gone and Chris Barrett is gone. Like that's the loss. An awful lot of experience gone from a full back line straight away. I know Barrett was starting. I know Higgins wasn't, but he was still around the squad and stuff. So there'll be a bit of rejigging. I don't know what the status is on Brendan Harrison. Is he back fit? I seen him on the TV at the All-Ireland final. He was on crutches, so he obviously got something done. So we'd be looking at trying to get Harrison back. I think Porrick O'Hora has a massive part to play this season. It's a chance for him to break in and cement his place. I don't think he's been anywhere too. He hasn't been bad for Mayo. He wasn't caught out in any games, and playing in Division 2 there should be no issues for him.
And Aidan O'Shea, obviously there was some rumours about him being injured. Looks like he's okay anyway, as far as I'm aware. Anyway, for the championship. Anyway, I'm not too sure about the league. He might miss the odd game, but I suppose getting injured on your first training session, I suppose not the greatest sign in the world.
No, not at all. But you know what? It was a sign too that maybe the boys are going absolutely 100 miles an hour the first night back. There was no sitting around or waiting around or tapping around. From what I gather, he'll be back for the championship. Yeah, there's no problem there. Well, they might give him a few minutes in the league if he's back. I'm hearing 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks from a few people, but I'm sure he'll be back training before that. So it's not as bad as first thought. He probably will be back. Yeah, there should be an Aidan O'Shea on the team sheet come championship anyway. It's the first game, if the Sligo game, I'd say Sligo would be preferring if he wasn't playing, because he seemed to do well against them the couple of times he's played against them as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, and I suppose looking at the other group as well, you've Cork, Clare, and Laois. Like, obviously, if you were to finish top, you'd finish one of the teams in there, like who finished second or whatever. I'd imagine anyway, you'd be confident enough anyway, you'd beat them and surely secure promotion anyway to Division 1.
Yeah. You're spot on. Look, if they're moving well and there's no raft injuries and everyone is firing all cylinders, there should be a performance in them that get them over the line against Cork or Clare. Will Laois be in the mix there? I don't see it, but you never know. Cork, who was it? Cork, Clare, Laois?
Cork, Clare, Laois, and Kildare.
Yeah, Kildare as well. Yeah, look at I wouldn't look into it too much. I'd be worried about getting over the Meath game first and trying to get the best draw possible. You know, if you can get the second best team in that group, you're better off.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, and
it probably puts more emphasis, actually. You know, if you can get that second seed in the other group to hit the ground running and make sure you win all 3 games, isn't it?
I think so, yeah. Because I mean, obviously Cork is probably the side you'd probably want to avoid. I mean, I reckon you'd still beat Cork anyway, but I think there's a drop off between them, Kildare, Clare, and Laois. You know, with all due respect to them counties, I think Cork are just a little bit above, them counties at this moment in time, anyways.
Yeah. No. I think we're going to be okay. Look, it depends. Yeah, but look, Kildare as well. They caught us on the hop a few years ago as well. Newbridge or nowhere, but no. Mayo should be okay in Division 2.
And I suppose the $1 million question, really, what do you reckon? Could this be Mayo's year? Could this be the year that Sam finally goes back to Mayo, or what do you reckon?
I don't think so. I'd be expecting a performance. You never know. Like, I'm not going to say it's not going to happen, but like, you got to have a bit of faith. You got to have, if you're a Mayo fan, you have to have a bit of faith, and you think, are Mayo good enough to win in All Ireland? They're up there, one of the best teams. If they're one of the best teams and they have a chance, it's just the Dublin issue is the problem, and I think it's really affecting the GAA now. If it goes on for another couple of years, you're looking at kids that have no interest in watching these games because they're so one-sided. Like, kids need to be inspired for the next generation. It might be okay in Dublin having the Sam being brought around to schools and stuff and showing you're winning, but that the GAA is an All-Ireland competition and it's for everyone. And if you have a thing like this, so why would you bother in your Westmeath if you have a chance of playing soccer or rugby? Why would you bother go playing Gaelic when you're never going to win the main competition?
Yeah, no, I do agree with you to a certain extent. I do think that certainly the GAA does need to look into, getting a lot of those counties to at least close to the level of Dublin. I would also say, a lot of counties in Leinster, in my opinion anyway, probably haven't, lived up to expectation. I'd say in the past 5 or 6 years. I think so. I think the likes of Meath, Kildare getting beat by the likes of Longford and Carlow, etc. Like, to be fair to Mayo, like, they've done a phenomenal job at maximising the resources they have. But I do think a lot of other counties haven't, in my opinion, anyways.
Well, Mayo are lucky. Mayo are very lucky in the sense that they don't have a League of Ireland team in their county. They don't have a major rugby playing population. We don't have many. We've 2 or 3 serious hurling clubs. We don't have anything else but the GAA. We're lucky. We're a large population, but Dublin. The problem with Dublin is the population. Like, if you have way more of a pick, there's more odds of you having a better team, no matter what. And if you get them players up to a certain standard or coach them to the best that you can, then it's ultimately it's unfair. I remember that the Sunday game, they had some ridiculous debate on at the end of last year. Was Gilroy on it? The former, it was just no one had done their homework. It was like one of those secondary school debates where two sets of young fellas were having a debate and they didn't really know what they were arguing about. The population is a major issue, and if you have a large population like that, you're going to have more people living in an area. It's going to be more attractive to sponsor the team. So commercially, they're going to be ahead, and ultimately it comes down to GAA. It comes down to people, and the smaller the population, the less chance you have of having an All-Ireland winning team. And there is obviously exceptions, and the small counties that have done massively well and they've had golden generations, but they're not turning these players over all the time, So it is an issue, and I think ultimately it'll come down to It's down to population and what else resources are coming out of county boards' pockets. Like Dublin don't have to pay for travelling, for mileage expenses, for hotels, for buses, for games. They don't have to worry about the logistical side of it. Like it's so unfair. Like.
Yeah, no, I get it from your point of view, all right. Like what I would say though, like I suppose is obviously the games always have been in Croke Park. I suppose Dublin have always played in Croke Park. Like obviously not always in the league. They always used to play in Parnell Park and then move over to Croke Park. So I do agree with you to a certain extent. I think definitely something maybe they could do is taking Dublin out of Croke Park. I wouldn't have a problem with that personally. I know a lot of Dublin fans love to travel and love to go down the country. I remember Thurles 2001 against Kerry. Obviously Dublin didn't win that game, but it was still a great occasion nonetheless.
Oh, we've had some of the great memories. I told you about the last decade for me and my friends has been the trips away. We had a qualifier below in Tipperary there a couple of years ago, and it was smashing Jay and hitting in the car. Where I think we left at 10 or 11 in the morning. We were down in the dome beside Thurles having a few pints. Like it's not somewhere a Mayo man would ever be often found is Thurles, the home of hurling. Like and then for the day that's in it, coming home and stopping in places and meeting different people, and that's all part of the experience. And I think the way that the crowds are dwindling for Dublin and the attendances that they probably will be able to play in Parnell Park in another year or two, because the amount of people that's going to these games is reducing all the time, bar finals. But you're always going to get people wanting a ticket for the final,
Yeah, I suppose we'll have to see how it goes anyway over the next while. I mean, obviously, certainly the GAA do have something to do, but I do also feel as well that it is about getting a lot of a lot of the other counties as well, as obviously trying to you can take the funding away from Dublin without doubt. Like that's no problem, that's no issue. But I do think the main focus should certainly be the likes of your Westmeaths, your Laoishes, your Longfords, your Carlows, your Sligos, for example. I suppose helping them out. Like we've seen obviously with Offaly, they got Shane Lowry in there, to sponsor them. Limerick have obviously had JP McManus. So I feel like for a lot of counties, it's kind of, they're trying to find their own kind of Shane Lowry or JP McManus. Obviously not every county is going to do that, but I feel like that's definitely a route that, a lot of counties could explore.
Yeah, and that's you touched on it again with the financial side of it. But you could put 20 million into certain counties or 100 million into certain counties. It's not going to get the players. And at the end of the day, like you might get the most out of the players you have. And you mentioned there about getting most out of the teams, but ultimately, it's the whole the way the competition is structured with counties, and the county, you play for the county you're in most of the time. That's it. It's very hard to get it balanced or level when there's just such a disadvantage sometimes between size of counties and other sports as well. If it's a small county, like Sligo is killed. Like I live in Sligo myself, and Sligo town is a soccer town, and that's it. And there's a few lads playing rugby then, and the rest in it are struggling.
Yeah, I suppose urbanisation, as Pat Gilroy put it on the Sunday game, but certainly won't go into the recommendations obviously that they made. Like I definitely wouldn't agree with amalgamating counties or splitting counties or anything like that.
But if you were to take away all that and stand back and look at it, you would think the only way to do this is to get equal amounts of population in certain places, and it would be easier managed and it'd be more competitive. But that you lose the whole GAA side of thing, the whole competitiveness of.
And you see, Dublin's a big brand as well. Like they're a big draw for the GAA. Like obviously they bring in a lot of the money for the GAA. So if they were to split Dublin in 2 or 4 or anything like that, I know for a fact anyway, myself and a lot of Dublin fans would just switch off, because it's, you're here to support your county. You're not here to support North Dublin or South Dublin, East, West, whatever it may be.
But if you took Dublin out of the championship now, it'd be a great championship.
Of course you'd say that now.
You would though. It could be Kerry, Tyrone, Donegal, Mayo, all have a chance of winning this. Everyone would be watching. There'd be more people watching the GAA if they took Dublin out of it. There you go. There's your hot take for the podcast.
Yeah, well, I suppose it would be fairly competitive. I mean, I'll give you that, and maybe then the likes of your Westmeaths and your Leashes could get a bit more. Ultimately, what do you reckon? Who wins the league? Do you think Dublin do win the league?
I don't think Dublin will do it. I think there's cracks starting to appear, and I'm hoping there is. No, I think Kerry will have a point to prove again. They'll want to win it out, and they'll be gung ho, and they'll be licking their lips for Galway now in a couple of weeks, and the 15th of May or 16th of May, is it?
16th of May, yeah. It's going to be an interesting one. Usually in previous National League campaigns, I would have said Dublin wouldn't win it. I have a sneaky feeling Dublin might win it this year, just because of the whole training breach. I reckon they're going to have their tail between their legs, and they're going to want to hit the ground fast. But at the same time, I'd look at Tyrone as probably a team that could win it personally. Like, I think with a new management team in there, and Conor McKenna, Cathal McShane in the forward line, Lee Brennan might be back as well potentially in there. So yeah, Kerry could Kerry as well. Definitely they could easily bounce back. Gonna be tough in that group for them, I reckon. Well, look, listen. Anyway, we'll wrap this up here. Anyway, I suppose actually, RF, come on, like where can people find you? Obviously, a podcast dedicated to all things Mayo. So where can they find you anyway if they're looking for you?
Spotify. It's all on Spotify. If you just type in RF podcast, you'll get it. Instagram, I have an Instagram page, RF. Twitter, RF. Facebook, Snapchat. I think I have a LinkedIn page as well somewhere. I know I'm over. If you just Google it, you'll get it on it. And if any, it's all the Mayo talk really. If you want to hear about Mayo inter-county football, the other side you probably don't read or listen in the media. It mightn't be as PC and as polished and as correct as other podcasts, but people seem to enjoy the genuine chat between myself and my good buddy that we normally just meet halfway between and sit in the car and record it. So it's very it's very rough and ready, but people seem to enjoy the amateur side of it. So if you're looking for something different or something new on Mayo football, if your county is playing Mayo coming up to it, don't make sure you tune in on Spotify to the RF podcast. It's also on Anchor FM actually as well. It's on, and you get the RSS feed on that if you desire. So you get it straight into your podcast app when you want it.
Perfect. Now, but well, I know there definitely is a lot of Mayo fans that watch my videos anyway over the past while, over the past couple of years. So definitely recommend them to go definitely check it out. I'll leave a link down below for them to check it out. So look, listen, anyway, cheers for coming on.
No bother. Cheers. Thanks for having me.